we'll begin recording, and you wait to hear from you. Okay, give us just a few minutes. I think she's joining audio.
Good morning, Glennis. Just let me know whenever you're ready.
Yes, ma'am. We've already introduced you.
Oh, great.
Happy to you. So we're waiting for your greetings, and then we'll.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for joining us today. I appreciate your participation. We are wanted to do this call today. I know we just had one last week, and so we are getting ready to launch our new website for and this will be the site that we'll use for tracking all of our applications. You will be able to get information. Hopefully it will streamline communication and put us all in a really good place going forward. So we wanted to use this opportunity to kind of demo it for you. What our vendor is going to, and I'll let Scott introduce the vendor, but is going to walk you through it. And then, of course, if there are any questions or suggestions, one, we'd ask that you use the chat, and then two, we'd ask that you email the email address that we have set up for communication with our hemp section. And then I believe what we will do is have a second training session on the 10th of July after we make whatever tweaks that we need to make between now and then we'll officially launch thereafter. So we just wanted to keep open the communication. I do also want to address if you're having any issues reaching our hemp section, or you're having any communication issues in terms of having calls returned or receiving information, please put in the chat who you are, and if you are waiting on information from us or you have not been able to reach us. We would strongly encourage that you use the email address, which I believe is hemp@la.gov. This allows us for you to have your question in writing. And that allows for us to accurately respond and track all of those questions that are coming in and the timeliness of the response. And so if you all would please use that, and we also have it in the chat below, use that email address when you have questions or you need to check the status until our system is up. And this would just really help with communication and making sure that we're answering your questions, we're getting back to you, and you're getting what you need. In the meantime, I will turn it over to the OPH team and our vendor, and just thank you all for joining.
Good morning, everyone. Just a clarification on the email. It's Louisiana Cannabis Program -hemp@la.gov. Louisiana Cannabis Program, and we put it in the chat. So we have updated that email address, but you should be able to send something in and get a reply. And so we do have our vendor on the line. Our lead person is Mr. Jason Stelzer, and he will be reviewing the portal and giving an orientation and training on the portal. And so I will turn over the screen and the mic to Mr. Stelzer.
Thank you, Dr. Gray. And thank you all for joining today. Again, my name is Jason Stelzer. I am the General Manager of Tyler Technologies in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. We have partnered with Department of Health and OPH on this application that we'll be reviewing today. And we are also the vendor who's been maintaining and built the current hemp applications that you guys are using, the initial requests, the invoice platform, et cetera. So a lot of our processes that are in use in this new application kind of come from that one. We spent significant time with Department of Health over the last several months and a lot of the end of last year, planning this application, addressing a lot of the concerns that I think you guys have brought to the department over that time. So it has been a long time coming, and I appreciate y'all's patience as we've been developing the new application. I know we are a little bit behind the promise of the June delivery. I apologize to all of you guys for that. I know you're eagerly waiting the new system, and I do think, I feel confident that it will streamline a lot of the processes that y'all are going through now, both on the firm side and the admin side. I think it's going to make life easier for everyone. And I think the planning that went into it from the OPH side is the driver of that. So I'm excited to show you guys what we've got. I do want to say that it is still a work in progress. So some of the stuff I'm going to show you today is going to be changing. Little words here and there, some of the UI in general, but the overall flow is what you can expect for the production application, which is coming in just a few short weeks. So I'm going to run through essentially the whole firm side. So creating an account, logging in, managing your own profiles, which is something that is not available in the current application, submitting new requests, seeing that feedback right there on the screen. One of the big changes in this new application over what you're doing now is that review process and the back and forth communication and updates of those labels themselves is all going to be within the application. So I know right now you all submit your initial requests, you upload some label artwork, and then the process kind of goes to email, right? So, and it's back and forth there. This new application is designed to streamline, consolidate, and centralize all of those features, and everything is visible to you right within the application. Emails will still be triggered, you'll still get them, but everything that gets emailed will also be displayed to you within the application. So we hope that will cut down on some of the time there, and really just improve the efficiency and the tracking. You know, it'll be right there, easy to track in a streamlined format. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen real quick and we'll get to it. All right. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, we can see the screen.
Okay. I'm going to try to hide some of these controls real quick. There we go. Okay. So this is the public landing page. This is going to be where everybody lands initially. You'll notice just I'll say this too, throughout this demo application, this is all placeholder text. Nothing that you see here is live data. Nothing that you see here should be interpreted as live data or accepted labels. We've used data that comes from the previous conversations, et cetera. So please ignore any example labels you see. The public search is really similar to the existing public search, right? This is ultimately where the public and you guys and anyone who's interested can come, anyone with an internet connection can come and see accepted labels. The difference here is that from this screen, you all will have the ability to log into your firm profiles. The other big difference here is that once images are accepted, they will be displayed in the public search. So right now, the public search includes your firm name and the product name and basic information about your location. The new application will have the ability to view a specific image. Obviously, this image is unavailable. We have some test data in here, but you'd be able to just pull up a label image and view it right here from the public search. So kind of a cool new feature. Other than that, this screen is generally unchanged. So we'll jump into the firm side. So the first thing that you'll do, the very first time that you guys interact with the application, you are going to have to create an account. Because it's profile based, it's going to be tied to your specific accounts. Existing firms, which I think is most of you, will have your data imported into the system. So your existing labels, your existing email address that is on file with Department of Health will be used to create your initial account. So as long as you sign up for an Okta as the authentication system we're using, as long as you sign up using the email address that LDH has on file, which they will be communicating to you to be sure, you'll log in for the first time and see all your own data, which is going to be cool. So I'm just going to go ahead and create a brand new account though, so we can go through this process. When you create a new account, it is going to require you to verify that account. just going to use Yop Mail here. So you get an email from Okta asking you to activate your account. Once you activate, it will take you to a standard Okta dashboard, but you can also just go back here, back to sign in, and use that account that you've just created, and it'll take you right into the application. And so for brand new firms, the first time that you log in, you will have to agree to basic terms of agreement. This is language throughout the application has been approved and agreed upon by LDH, or is in the process of. This specific message is essentially just agreeing that most of the communication is going to flow through the application. Now, that's one of the big enhancements to this application, is that this is going to be your hub to interact with the program, to submit your labels, to see the responses to those labels. Again, while you will get emails about them, it's all hosted here. So this language is essentially just saying you agree to that electronic communication, and we'll be monitoring it. And at the address that you use is one that you have access to. So again, for brand new firms, the very first thing that you're going to be doing is creating your firm profile so that you can interact with the application. Standard information, this should come from your W-9, legal business address. If your mailing address is different, you can enter it separately, but you shouldn't need to if it's not different. Currently in the system, fax number is required. That will obviously not be required because not many people actually use fax. So we'll make sure that that is not required in the production system. And then once you've created your firm profile, and every time you log in subsequently, you'll be taken to your firm dashboard. The dashboard is designed to be pretty much all of the tasks that you're going to be using regularly, right? So right now, there's not much data here. I don't have any pending requests. I don't really have any messages. I can see that my account was created. This is an example of something that I will get an email for, but I will also see on my dashboard. So you can see I got an email right here. And it's the same message right here. All of the emails that get sent will be tracked in both places. It will be delivered to your address, and they'll be right here on your dashboard. That includes responses to statuses, to submission requests, etc. The firm that I just created is obviously written right here. And if you need to edit it at any time in the future, you can just click this edit button, make changes, save those changes. You notice there's one new field here, excuse me, called primary contact. Right now, there's only one. But as you add new users to your firm, you will be able to change that primary contact. This is really just a display. And so when OPH needs to contact your firm, they'll know who to contact. So you have full control over which of your authorized users you would like to be listed as that primary contact, which is a good segue into user management. You will have the ability to add up to 3 users for each firm. These users can be either super users, we call them, or view-only users, which ultimately a super user can do everything. They can submit requests, they can pay the invoices, they can view invoices, respond back to the admin on those change requests, etc. Whereas a view-only user obviously can only view. They can come in, they can see exactly what's going on with your firm, kind of monitor the status of things, but they won't be able to submit on behalf of the firm. Only super users can do that. It is completely up to you all as the firms to decide what that level of access should be for each of your users, but noting that at least one is required to be a super user. So inviting a new user to your system is going to be a pretty simple process. You select the type of user that they'll be. You send an email address to them by inputting their, I shouldn't use that same name, huh? We'll call this one Johnny. You send an email address to that user or an email to that user by inviting them here. Go ahead and copy that. And as soon as you save this, this user will get an email inviting them to the firm. They have already been associated with this firm. So as soon as they go through that account creation process, they will have access to your firm profile. So we can go and return dashboard and just a quick check on that one. See if we can get into his email address. So been added to Democo. Click here. We've got some room for improvement on this email, but if this user clicks here to set up his Okta account, he will again be right in that that dashboard. So he's able to manage Democo now as well. Again, you will have the ability to have up to 3 users. If you need to replace somebody, it's also easy to remove a user. We can take old Johnny Doe right out of here. You sure you want to remove him? He no longer has access to the firm. He's gone. If I hadn't removed him, I would have been able to select him from that dropdown as the primary contact. But again, right now there's only one. And if your primary contact gets deleted, it will reassign the next user as a primary contact. Somebody is always going to have to be a primary contact. You always need at least one super user, and you always need at least one user. And so now into the fun stuff, which you're going to be doing most often, actually, is submitting a new request. You'll notice there's a drop down here to select the unit for which you're applying to. Right now, it's only consumable hemp. This application is focused on consumable hemp right now, but has been built in a way that it can scale up and account for all of the label units under the jurisdiction of the Department of Health. None of those have been onboarded yet, but they may in the future. And when and if they do, you'll see those here: food and drug, milk and dairy, et cetera. Each of them will have their own requirements. Obviously, for now, you guys will just be selecting consumable hemp, which is the default, and you can start a new request. There are a few different steps to the request process. And again, what we've tried to do throughout this planning with Office of Public Health is really streamline and bring it all into one flow. So there's 2 types of questions that you'll be answering for each of these requests. The first is what we just refer to as overall questions. And these questions will be applicable to every label that you're submitting with this specific request. And your labels can be 1 to many, just like they are now. You can submit however many labels you need to with each request. This first round of questions will be, again, associated with every label that you're submitting. And the second round of questions will be specific to each individual label. Real quick. Questions with red blocks around them are required. In the production application, I believe that every question is going to be required because it's all critical information. If it wasn't, they would not be collecting it. For test, we have not required them all to kind of streamline through it. There is also some conditional logic on some of these questions that, if your mailing address is different, you have to answer those fields. And if it's not, you don't. So once you fill out the overall questions, you click save. It'll take us to the next view, which is really the whole submission itself. So we can see a recap of who our firm is, these overall questions that we can continue to edit as often as we need to. I'll see a cost breakdown of the labels that I'm submitting. Right now is 0. Just like in the current application, you will not pay anything until your labels have been accepted. So this is not a cost breakdown of what you're about to pay, but it's an estimate of what you would pay if all your labels being submitted here are accepted. So as we scroll down, we now have the ability to add additional documents and add labels. Additional documents will be things like certificate of analysis, laboratory accreditation, things that you're probably having to provide now, maybe via email and communication with LDH. You can do it all through the application right now. And then for adding labels, this is going to bring me to that second set of questions I talked about, which is specific to each individual label. It's a very similar process. There is a form associated with it. Call this first label test 1. C numbers. Questions here, again, were chosen by the Department of Health, and it's the information that is going to kind of help you make sure that the labels that you're submitting are kind of primed for acceptance. They're helping you make sure that your labels can meet all of the requirements known, kind of streamline that process for you. And so generally all of these are kind of just a checklist to make sure that, yep, your label is good to go. Each of these has a little bit of a help text too, to make sure that it's clear what they're asking for here. So essentially, does your label meet each of these? Notice that they're all required. If your label does not meet one of these, it's a kind of a good sign that go back and make sure that your label does. come back and resubmit. Here's an example of a conditional logic. If the product does not contain THC, I don't need to say how much THC is in it. And then once I save my questions, obviously it's going to be important that I attach an actual label file. So just like the current process, PDFs are the only image files accepted. Once you select that label, you can upload it. And so now you can see I'm back to my overall submission. I've got one product included, $50 is my running total. If I need to add more, I can continue adding as many labels as I need to. I can view or remove an existing label. I can edit these questions at any time. This is also saving my progress on the fly. So if you need to leave for any reason, if you've got a bunch of labels and you're just not ready to submit them all, you can always leave and come back. And you'll notice it's just on my dashboard. I've got one label in this request right now. It's just in draft status. Created it today. And if I need to come back and make changes to it or I'm ready to submit, I'll just click the view and reopen the submission and I can continue on. So let's just go ahead and add one more here. Ignore my numbers here as I have no real idea what the accurate or expected numbers here are, but I want to fill in this information, save that one. Again, I'm going to need to upload a label associated with this one. And so now I'm feeling pretty good about this. I'm only submitting 2 labels at this time. I am ready to submit. Do a quick check of the information that I am submitting. I've got 2 labels associated with this one. That's what I want to do. So I'm going to go ahead and submit. Once I submit, I send this, or the application is going to send this to the LDH team for review. Notice that my status has changed to in review, and also notice that I don't have the ability to open for edit or delete this submission request at this time. As firms, you will have the ability to edit that application as many times as you need to before you submit, and once it gets returned as changes requested, if it gets returned as changes requested. However, while it's in the LDH court for review, we have locked out the ability to change it for obvious purposes. You don't want to change it while it's in review or change anything and kind of slow down that progress, right? So we freeze the application to the firms while it's being reviewed, and while it's back in the firm's court, we freeze it to the admin. So just make sure that only the right hands are in it at the right time. And as it's being reviewed, this status will change. You'll be notified both via email and on your dashboard again if that status changes. The admins have the ability to mark up your image. They have the ability to provide some canned or custom responses to why your labels may or may not be acceptable at this time. And I think that the overall goal, what we've seen is, I think that feedback right now is done offline or through email. Again, it's going to be straight through this application to make it just really clear and easy for everyone. When that status changes, you'll get that email right here and in your email account. And if my admins are working quickly, I think we will probably see that process here in a second. Any questions at this point that I can answer while we wait for a quick little review step?
So Jason, we have a few questions in the chat.
Okay.
Will currently pending labels be imported into the new system, and will this be available tomorrow as originally told? So you can answer the first part and we'll talk about the other part.
Yeah, so will currently accepted labels be imported into the system? The answer is yes, with a bit of a caveat there. Everything that is currently accepted has been provided to us by the Department of Health, and it will be imported, and it will be associated with your firms. As I said, existing firm data will also be imported. So if DemoCo is a real existing firm, I would create my account. I would come in here and I would see all of the previously accepted labels associated with my firm. The public would also see those labels. However, since those labels were not submitted through this application, you won't see the history of like the questions that were submitted with it, right? Those questions weren't gathered before. Moving forward, any labels that are submitted through the application, you'll see that full history of submission and tracking of that status. Whereas the imported labels, it will truly just be the labels in the acceptance. And when renewals come around, that'll all be handled through the system and those old labels will be included. But the form data, if that makes sense, obviously won't be imported because it doesn't exist.
Okay. And then the next question is, will basic information auto-populate?
What type of information? So if you're, yeah, I'd like clarity on what type of information you're.
So I guess probably name, address. So if they have multiple, you know, if you know, if they have a label and then I don't know, 5 days later, you know, want to input another label, will that information auto-populate like name, address?
Yeah, the application right now is not set to autofill any information. However, it is a web application, and if your own browser supports that and you've set that up that way, I mean, Google does that kind of naturally. So that is one answer, and I know it's not the answer we're looking for, but the system in its current state is not set to autofill information into those requests. No.
And then how do you associate your new login with your firm?
Yes. So for firms that already exist and have those accepted labels, there is a list that has been provided to us by OPH of those firms and the email address on file with those firms. You all as firms will be getting emails from LDH when the system goes live. That email that it gets delivered to, as long as you use that email address to create your initial account, you know, so if I use jason.stelzer at tyler.com, and that was the one that was imported, as soon as I log in, I'm going to see everything associated with my firm, all my labels. So it is important that you do use the email address that is on file with Department of Health. That is where you'll be getting that correspondence. You can change afterward, right? You saw how easy it was to add a new user, remove a user. After that initial login, after you've created that initial account, you can add anybody else you need to, but it is critical that upon first account creation and login, you use the email address that's on file. This will be the same address that you got your renewal invoices, et cetera, the one that you've been using historically. So I don't expect an issue there, but that's the short answer to that question.
Okay. And then will our labels that have not been renewed be purged from the list?
That one is not a question for me. That's a question for Department of Health and
Yeah,
policy.
yeah, we'll purge them. Okay.
Okay. Good timing. It looks like I did get a response on my my request, and what I can see here is that same request that I had. Obviously, this is the same day, but you'll be able to see those dates here. It is back in my court. I can view it now. I could delete it if I no longer want to proceed for any reason. I can say I changed my mind. I don't want to submit this request. But what I can see is that there are changes required to one of my labels. Again, I also get an email about this. This would be delivered to my email address and my dashboard here. But what I can do is I can just open this up and I can see exactly what those changes might be. So right here up at the top, I can see a quick summary. The artwork I submitted is missing a responsible party declaration and net quantity of contents. I really thought it had that. I mean, I looked at it and I checked that box, but I guess I missed it. So let's scroll down and check it out. Again, only the label that has been marked as changes required is left back for me to review. I can go ahead and look at this. And down here at the bottom, I can see that test one label that I submitted and a marked up version of it. You can see here, I might need to zoom in, but the admins will have the ability to mark up that, that zoom didn't help much, did it? They'll have the ability to mark up the image. You can see there's a circle around this title and an arrow. This is obviously just example data. They've highlighted the information to the side. Anything and everything that those admins are looking at while they're reviewing, they'll have the ability to highlight, to circle, to add colors, to add text to this, to really just make it easy for you guys to see what they're seeing and what they're asking for changes to. So you can see a marked up version of your own label. And as soon as you're ready to resubmit, you say, okay, I've made those changes. I'm going to resubmit that. You'll remove your existing version and you will replace that file with a updated version of the label. Obviously, I'm using the same file here, which is guaranteed to get this denied, I'm sure. In your case, you would use a updated label. Now that we're back in there, I want to resubmit this. So I'm just going to come back here and I'm going to, excuse me, resubmit this to LDH. Once again, this is back in review. I am no longer able to edit it, but those, the reviewers on the OPH side will be reviewing that, that resubmission. And so they'll have that history too of knowing what was submitted before, and the ability to just kind of continue that process through this tracked application instead of the current out of application process that you guys are going through. So both sides will kind of be able to track it throughout the process. And there might be some days in between. There might be some delays in back and forth. Whereas now in your email, it's kind of going back and trying to piece together the history. Here, it's all on the same exact submission. So notice that I edited my submission. I didn't have to just send a whole new thing. It's kind of just a work in progress there. So while we wait on one more review step, any other questions pop up in the chat?
So yes, and we answered one. Let me just see. I don't think maybe that person didn't. So the current pending labels, they want to know whether those are going to be uploaded from existing firms on their portal. And I think you answered that already, Jason, but if you want to clarify.
Yeah, so labels will be imported. We will, prior to launch of the production application, we will get a final list of labels to be imported from the Department of Health. And obviously this is an ongoing process. You guys have been patiently waiting for this application, but there is work happening on the firm side and on OPH side. So I know labels are getting submitted and reviewed and approved all the time. So before we go live, we will get that final version of everything that needs to be imported into the new system. And at that time, anything that OPH has decided should be in the system will be in the system. We will not have the ability to import, say we go live on July 17th and July 16th, you've submitted a label for request in the old system. We will not be able to import like an in-progress label to this system because you won't have the form data, but approved or accepted labels will be imported with the most current version as provided by the state. So I hope that answered that question.
Okay, thank you.
And let's see if I've got any feedback here. Do a quick refresh. Oh, I do. So I have no pending requests at this time because, hey, my request has been accepted. This is great news. And now you'll see a new little widget down here that I've got an invoice because my labels have been accepted. So I have a $100 invoice that I am able to pay. It was invoiced today because my request has been accepted. So again, you'll get an email that's on your dashboard and to your account. And we will now also have an invoice that you can open and view. This is pretty similar to what you guys are getting now with a couple of the changes to come. So right now there's only one of these shown. We know that there is an issue with this. All of your products will be shown on this invoice. If you have submitted one product, you'll see one. If you have submitted 50, you will see a list of 50 products right here. That is a change in progress, but every invoice you get will have line items for exactly what you are paying for at that time, both initial acceptance and the annual renewals. And once it's paid, we'll obviously populate a confirmation number. But the process for submitting that payment is exactly what you're doing now. You have the ability to print this invoice, mail it in with a cashier's check or money order, or you have the ability to pay it online, which is the exact process you're doing now, the same checkout portal. So we'll go ahead and do that. And I think the vast majority, from what I've seen, of these acceptance invoices have been paid online. I think there's very few that are using the offline process. It is always available to you, but I think because of that, you guys are probably all pretty familiar with this screen. So none of this process has changed. Go ahead and submit my payment here. And then this is the final trigger. And what's cool about this application is again, we're trying to streamline, we're trying to consolidate some of these processes. There's a lot that's automated now. And so you're going to get an invoice after your labels have been accepted. Great news, I've paid this invoice. I no longer have an outstanding invoice. And once I've done that, I'm done. As a firm, I'm done, and I don't have to wait on those labels to be added to the list. Let's see if we can get back to that public view real quick. They will just automatically trigger to display in that list once they've been paid. You do have the ability to pay offline. Again, that's an option to you. And if so, that offline payment does need to be recorded in the system by an admin, but again, I don't think that happens often. But if you pay online, as soon as you pay, your labels will display in the public search. And let me do a little refresh here. Bear with me. I got a slow load. Here we go. They should, upon payment, display immediately in the public search. This is our UAT environment. It is a little slower than our production environment. So let's give it a second here and hope that it does not make me look foolish. Go. Let's see if we are here. Okay, so demo code. This is my company right here. Test 2, test 1. These are my product names, accepted on June 30th here. So I completed my payment, and I can view the final version of that label that was submitted. This is my actual product label. So that's kind of the process there. Again, it's all within the application, right? I never had to leave this application. It was easy for me because I was already in it. We did this in 20 minutes, what could be a days long process, obviously. But every notification that you get will come to your application dashboard, but also to your email. So you get notifications that say, hey, go log back in. We've got some movement on your request. You'll be able to see the markup. You'll be able to see the specific changes that are requested. And as soon as they get accepted and invoiced, they are in the public search. They are officially registered, etc. Any new questions in the chat that I can answer?
Yeah, so the next question is, will the new public search function show if a label is pending once it passes the 15 business day submission?
In its current state, the only way for a label to show in the public search is upon acceptance and invoice payment. The decision of the 15-day window is more of a policy question in planning with the department, but the current state of the application and the plan for the production launch does not have the feature to automatically put it in the search during that window.
With this new system, if we send in several labels in one transaction and say 2 out of 4 are approved, will it be approved? Will they go ahead and approve the 2 and invoice for the 2, or will that hold up the approved ones until all 4 get approved?
That's a very good question, and I actually intended to touch on that. So thank you for asking it. The answer is that the entire request will need to be approved before it can be invoiced. And with that, you have the ability to submit one label or many labels. And I'm not going to tell anyone what to expect on approval, or if you think your labels are approvable or not. But it might be, if you decide it's a more risk-free way to proceed, better for some of you to submit batches, right? So if you're going to submit 50 labels, maybe you are on the fence about whether 5 of them are going to get approved. You can break that batch down and submit them. You can have as many requests going as you want. The full request will need to be accepted before it can be invoiced and approved. So it might be in your best interest to submit them in batches. Don't do 50 on one, do 10 versions of 5. That might not always be the case. And I think that there's going to be a groove that kind of gets found here, and some labels that are routine, right? I'm rambling now about assumptions on policies and reviews there, but to answer the question, the entire overall submission will need to be accepted before it can be invoiced and displayed in the public search. That said, also remember that if you submit 10 labels and you get back a notice from the review step that says, look, you submitted 10 labels, one of them has a lot of issues. Here are all the issues with it. Update that label and proceed. You can choose at that point, if you don't want to hold up the process, to just remove that single label from this request and just say, all right, it's going to take me a few days to get this done. I just want to remove it for now, delete it from the request, resubmit. Now you only have 9, and we can assume that those 9 will be accepted because there were no changes requested. That can streamline that process, and you can come back when you're ready with the one that needed changes, right? You can always remove a label from your request.
Okay. Does this system show when the label is good through? So just say, on a yearly basis, if I submit in August, I guess, is it good through August?
Obviously we have a registration date on here. I believe, and this is getting into the neighborhood of a policy question, but I believe that all labels are good through June 30th of every calendar year. I think that's the policy. So while this system does not show an expiration date, I think it's the same across the board, generally regardless of when you submit. But we show an initial registration date, which is going to be the same for 1 year, 10 years, however long it's in here. But an expiration date is not currently shown on the public search at all. Nope.
Last Friday, was mentioned the portal goes live July 1. What day does the portal officially go live?
Our current plan is that the portal is expected to go live on July the 17th, Monday the 17th. We are releasing phased releases to the Department of Health for internal testing. One of those releases will be today. As we continue to test and the department continues to test, we'll work out all those kinks with our final version of the application released for testing the week of July the 10th and tentative launch date on Monday, July the 17th.
Thank you. That's it. All right. We will turn it back over to Ms. Joyner. This ends your part of the presentation, Mr. Stelzer. We will have another training on July the 10th. We'll send that invite out immediately after this meeting, as well as the recording for this meeting. Ms. Joyner, mic is yours.
Thank you, guys.
She's still on?
I'm sorry, Glennis, did you ask me a question?
Yeah, did you have any closing remarks?
No, I just want to make sure that everybody's question was answered. I see someone who said that they wonder why we won't answer this question. Will the current pending labels be uploaded for existing firms on their portal? Has that been answered?
Yes, it's been answered.
Okay, perfect.
Mhm.
And okay, well, I don't have any closing remarks. I just want everyone to know that this is the first step in really streamlining communication. I think it's important. I know we've had questions and concerns about having to address each label or every label being approved for every product, or the multiple steps in the system. And all of that is for a reason, because what I understand previously, there's been a lot of back and forth on products with questions, and it's all been done via email. and it causes confusion. And so having this checklist and this ability to go through and see every step allows for efficiency and reduces the amount of back and forth that has to happen to get a product approved and through the process. And additionally, I would just implore you all to please, if you have questions or you need information, to use the email address. And we will respond to that email address, and we will make sure that you get the answers that you need. And we do it in a timely manner. And you can reach out to me. I know that some of you reach out to Steve, but you can reach out to me as well. I'm Tanya Joyner, tanya.joyner@la.gov. My cell phone number is on my email block. I'm happy to assist in any way that I can. That's all. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Joyner, and this will end this call, and we'll send out an invite for July the 10th, and this recording immediately after this meeting. Thank you all, and have a great holiday weekend.